You can't see any color yet. Let's see if that works. Boom. There are the onions, and there is zero color happening yet, but I'll give you frequent updates. Looks like I got a couple questions here. Hope I can answer the questions. You might just everything, all right? So let's see. Antique stuff, love, love, love. I know, I love that stuff. I recently saw you on that Zoom session, and you had those cool mixers behind you, and I was like, oh, I tried to say something, but. So back to the onions. Right now I'm probably at about 6 out of 10, Mo. It's an assertive medium heat, you know. It's not wimpy, and I've stepped away. I don't want to develop color. If we're not seeing color here pretty soon, we're going to be stepping this up to 7 out of 10, okay? And so I want to check. I want to give it like another minute before I even think about looking at this stuff. And the next thing I want to kind of have on deck is my sherry that I found in my cupboard, or some kind of little white wine or something that you have. Again, I kind of described what we were going to see. As I start developing color, if it starts turning to what we call fond, it's like literally sticking to the pan down there, we're going to deglaze it with this sherry and melt all of that fond, and it's going to color the rest of these onions in here. Let's see, is Spanish onion in greasy? I'm not sure about that. Is Spanish onion a yellow onion? Oh gosh. I've always heard Spanish onion is a red onion, but I only know just like so much about it. Gosh, you may stump me on this strains of different onions, these varieties of onions, guys. I just really know how to cook the broad categories here. Let's see. Stepping away is harder than I thought. Isn't it though? Isn't it? One of the hardest things I have to teach, right? I'm always saying that in class. Step away from the pan. Let this develop heat, and let it develop color. And if you're sitting there poking it and prodding it, you're impeding color. It cannot work, okay? So I'm going to give mine. It's been an extra minute here. Let me give it a little roll around here. Do I see anything? Gosh, I thought I did, but okay. I'm not seeing anything, and Mo, I know you're following with me, and if anybody else is, you can too, okay? I'm going to kick it up to like 7 out of 10, okay? I'm going to give it another bump, and we're going to get some color out of this thing, and this is something, you know, my students will say all the time, Chef, it's not working, it's not going to be there. It's going to get there. It has no choice in the matter. You're the one in control. We are creating color in this thing, okay? The only thing we don't want to do when we turn it up, and we don't want it to get away from us now, okay? So we're really, really going to watch this, okay? Let me show the pot again, okay? And whoa now. And there she is, okay? Still, like I say, we're not seeing color down there, so we're stepping away. Okay. On it. You got heat level 7. Beautiful. And we got Mr. Ron is watching there. Awesome, awesome. Who else is in there? Let's see. Jennifer. Mags. Good to see you, Mags. Talk about some old times there, some fun stuff. Good questions, by the way. Different types of onions. Hit me with some questions. You know, I can talk about a lot of stuff. I'm just not very deep. Mile wide and an inch deep. Okay. Awesome, awesome. Hey, Vincent, good to see you out there. Mark's out there as well. Awesome. And we are just waiting for onions to caramelize. Again, sherry is on deck. Hey, I got something we can talk about here, okay? I've got this bouquet garni that I put together, okay? Again, bouquet garni, we're going to tie together some herbs, and I'm actually going to throw a little bit of celery in this thing, and tie it all up and add it into the pot, and then later on I can pull it out. I don't really want chunks of celery in my soup. I just put a little bit of that celery in the background is kind of nice. It brings something to the table, okay? So I'm going to work that in. I brought along some thyme. I got a bunch of thyme, and that's just kind of melt in there and everything and be beautiful. So that's going to give me some good flavor. I brought along some celery, as I mentioned, okay? So just the inner parts of the celery, whoops, excuse me, inner parts of the celery where the leaves are kind of yellowish, I'll use that. I don't want to use green leaves in my sauces and soups and things like that. So those yellow bits, right? I'm going to kind of tie that together with that thyme I just showed you, right? And then I also brought along, okay, just to kind of give you examples of things you can use, I have a bunch of parsley in there, and I went in and I scored some parsley stems out of there, right? Yeah, in this case, the stems are the good part, right? And so I get the stems, and I can tie that into my little herb bundle, my bouquet garni, okay? And it's gonna lay in all those flavors. Finally, the last one I got here, I left this to the end, okay? Rosemary. I have one tiny, paltry, looking skinny Charlie Brown Christmas tree of a rosemary on there, and I have that on purpose because I am afraid of rosemary. This thing it's strong, it tastes like a pine tree, and I like a little bit in the background, but I don't want so much that's just gonna run away like a freight train with this dish, okay? So just like this one skinny little piece of rosemary in there just for a little background. Other flavors, we got the onion, we got the garlic in there, and that's going to lend a lot of flavor to that dish once it kind of melts into it. And we're going to also see a lot of black pepper in this dish as well, okay? And the flavors in this dish, I mean, that is classic French cuisine. I've been kind of laying down a lot of these same flavor profiles in several of the classes that you guys have already seen me do while we've been in quarantine here. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about what's happening outside. Let's see, one more thing I want to get into it is my bay leaf. Another classic in the French cacophony of flavors, the pantheon of French flavors, okay? So in goes a bay leaf. I also mentioned thyme. I'm going to work a little dry thyme into this, and I also have that fresh thyme as well. A little dry in there to lay down some base flavors is not a bad thing to do. So I'm throwing in, I don't know, maybe about a teaspoon and a half of dry thyme in there, maybe 2 teaspoons, you know. I'm not measuring, throwing a little bit in there. And now we have been kind of hanging back, and I've been talking and, you know, making up stories and all. And now I can look in my pot, and now we got some color going on in here, okay? And that is what I'm talking about. I got to get you guys in on this right there, okay? So let me tilt this pot. I still got my herbs down on my cutting board. But you guys see how my pot is getting a little bit brown up in there, okay? That is fond. Fond is my friend. Fond is flavor. Fond is deliciousness. That is like concentrated onion caramel right there. And so what I want to do is I want to melt that caramel before it gets super dark. I want caramel, I don't want carbon, and I'm watching it get darker and darker here. Let me get that camera on there, okay? What I'm going to do is I got a bunch of dark in that corner. I got my wooden spoon right here, and I got my sherry, okay? I'm going to put a little blast of sherry up in that corner, and I want to do it quickly because it's really starting to get kind of dark there. I hope you guys can see it. Whoa! That was more than I wanted to do. A lot more. What I want to do is just a tiny little splash in there, and what I do is I've completely cleaned everything out of that area. I'm going to move my pot around, and I'm going to make sure, hey, look, there's more browning over there. Well, I still have moisture in here. Check, you can see that perhaps, right? I still have moisture in there. Let me kind of move that around. I had enough liquid in the bottom of that to go ahead and melt everything. So I just went and cleaned that up, okay? And I'm going around, and it looks like the rest of the bottom of the pot is clean, okay? I'm going to go ahead. I'm still on about 7 out of 10. It's liking this temperature right here. I'm going to knock a few more pieces apart, and I'm going to show it to you, okay? Here she is, okay? You can see I got another half shade of color on this thing now. Half of it was that deglazing process. It melted that basically brown sugar in there and kind of glued that color to my onions now, and now they're a half shade darker. I'm going to step back, and I'm going to let this get a little bit browner. If this gets dry for you people cooking at home, let's add a little bit of fat. I'm going to go ahead and say mine's a little bit dry. My bouquet garnish is still sitting here. I don't want to throw it in yet anyway. Okay, so it's hanging back. I'm going to get a little bit more fat going in here. Just, you know, just to kind of say, hey, it could use that, okay? So let me get a little spoon. And I'm putting about a half tablespoon of fat in there. This is a combination of duck and bacon fat. Plus I got butter. It doesn't get any more French than this, guys. This whole thing is going to taste like cassoulet onion soup or something. Okay, Okay, so I worked a little bit of extra fat. Again, if your veggies don't have a shine to them, if they start blackening instead of browning, get some fat in that pan. That's what's going on there, okay? You gotta have fat to cook with. We need to stop being so afraid of fat, people. We need to embrace fat. We get a lot of nutrients from fat, and I think a lot of the things that we hear about fat seems to turn out not so bad after a while, okay? Anyway, just my thoughts. Didn't mean to get on a soapbox there. My onions are caramelizing. I'm gonna work on my bouquet garni real quick, okay? Again, I've got thyme. I've got celery pieces, like yellowish celery pieces. I've got parsley stems, and I got one tiny little scrawny little rosemary on there. I don't want to hurt anybody with this thing, so I kind of keep it a little bit mellow on that rosemary for this one. Rosemary's for big flavors like, you know, lamb and stuff. I get that. But this French onion soup, I'm looking for sweet and salty out of this. The human animal loves sweet and salty together. That is why so many people love French onion soup. And that is what we're doing right here when we're caramelizing these onions. I keep saying it, we're creating onion caramel. It's that sugar that is present in those onions. It's cooking down to delicious, sweet, mysterious, silky, awesome deliciousness. It's just so good. So good. I gotta stir the pot here. Let's check this out. Okay. Hope you guys are still hanging with me. Hope I'm not getting a little creepy here. Look at that. You see the brown in the bottom of that pot? I do. Hey, I caught it just in time. Any darker in that stuff would have been getting carbonized, and I want caramel, right? I'm just going to do a tiny little splash. This is what it's supposed to look like, okay? Just a tiny little splash. I want just a tiny bit of liquid that's going to evaporate pretty quickly. By the time I do a little deglaze in there, I just cleaned up that little section of pot right there. And again, I move it around. If you were with me earlier, this whole conversation is about controlling color in our pot. That's what we're doing. You see me going round and round in this thing. A little splash of liquid. If something is wet, it can't get any browner than it is right now. It's going to clean up the bottom of that pot so it doesn't blacken. It's not going to get bitter. It's going to stay nice and sweet. Tiny little splashes. I'm going to hit it again, okay? She's going to look like so. Okay? This is like down-home, dirty cooking tech right here. You get a little blast of that alcohol in your face, by the way, you'll feel it. You can feel that a little bit. I turned all the way around. There's a little bit of caramel in there. I'm not too worried about that. Let's let her go. I'm going to spread it all out again. Step away from the pot. I made that big giant bouquet. I don't even want to throw it in there yet. It's just going to be bumping around and all this stuff. I got a lot of stirring and scraping and love going on, quite frankly, in this pot right here. I don't want this big old thing bumping around in there with me, quite frankly. So I'm going to leave that off to the side, and once we get all that liquid in there, once everything's all developed into something romantic and magical in there, that's when I'm gonna bump that bouquet garni in there. So he's kind of off to the side. The only other ingredients we're talking about here are our liquids and the bouquet garni. Everything else is already in there. It's beautiful. I could mention pepper, my friend Pepper. Let's work a little of that in there. And you guys are talking about fishing out the pieces later. Yeah, I make that big old bouquet, and I can fish that out. And I can also, what I like to do is after the thyme is kind of cooked in there, the leaves, I can just kind of flick it. I call it flicking. It's a culinary term, but I just flick my bouquet and those old thyme leaves just fall right into my dish. And so you just see, hey, it's like, hey, they're using real herbs when they're cooking here. It's the love that I keep talking about, right? It's like there are people out there that go through the motions and cook for you, and there are people out there that are putting a little love into it. And I think when you sit down in a restaurant and you see a restaurant that is cooking with love, you recognize that. Those are the ones you're going back to and that you're supporting, right?